put a human face on what you do every day, on what psychiatrists do every day, on what psychiatric nurses do every day, because they don't get to see what happens before their contact with the patient and what happens afterward. Let me introduce you to my son, Ben. Ben was my firstborn and my most amazing baby. I mean, that first baby, and he came out of the womb with his eyes like, what's going to happen next? And that's kind of an attitude. That's how he was the first 14 years of his life. I had this amazingly bright, sweet, loving little boy. And it wasn't until he was in his teens, as is quite common with gradual onset schizophrenia, that he began to show some strange signs. Now, anyone who has parented teenagers know, as one psychiatrist said to me, they're all a little bit mentally ill. Because, you know, there are hormones, right? You know, there are hormones, and that came from a psychiatrist, so I can quote him. There are hormones, there are body changes, and also, as I later learned, the brain does not fully develop and connect until we're about 25. So really, adolescence lasts a lot longer, and it's not just the economy, but it's brain connections that have to be finally put together the way they're supposed to. It was various treatment options, 5 hospitalizations, and before those hospitalizations, waiting for him to be sick enough to be hospitalized. Was it enough that he wandered all night in his bathrobe talking to bushes? No, not sick enough. Was it enough that I came to his door one time to pick him up to visit to go to his sister's birthday party? At the time, we were trying letting him live alone because the problem was I was too demanding. And he came to the door with a totally vacant stare, blunt affect, I now know what it's called, staring at me, not knowing what day it was, who he was, where he was, drug-free, that's how he was. Was that sick enough? No. He'd been in the hospital for 3 weeks, and he wanted to go home. And I was my little boy inside this stubborn, confused young man. And I said, honey, I can't. We all want you to go home. That's why you got to take your meds. So you have to do what they say. And he said, okay. I said, I'm going to go home now. He says, okay, wait a minute. He goes down the hall to his room, comes out with a plastic bag, walks down the hall, shakes everybody's hand goodbye, comes up to the nurse's desk and goes, I'm ready to go home now, Mom. He might have said, Mommy. And I explained to him that he couldn't. The nurse was amazingly helpful and gently took his stuff and said, you will go home. Your mom wants you home, but not yet. And she gave me the right to walk out the door. I took 5 steps down the hall, leaned my back against the wall, and slumped down and started crying. Because my little boy was in the hospital and I was powerless to help him without the right treatment options. That's what it's like for the family. And yet, when they respond, you start to get them back. It's like that old Doris Day movie where they think the husband's dead and he's really been on a desert island and he comes back. It's like my son started to tell me he loved me again. He started having real conversations with me and listening to me. He started hugging again, back from the possible future of being hospitalized for the rest of his life to the place where he is a part of our family, a good friend, a worker, and a student, is thanks to the Therapeutic Alliance of healthcare professionals like you